everybody. It's Friday. It's Cosmotronic. It's all things WildStar related. And as you can see, I am joined by the awesomest Chua in the Nexian verse, Gazimoff.
Chua in the Nexian verse?
Well, I was going to say Nexian universe, but then I kind of forgot to put the unit in front of it. So it just became verse. Chuas break out in song and dance, don't they?
I don't think so. Maybe dance, but...
I was going to say, I've seen you dance. You can't deny the fact that Chua dance.
Well, this is it. But having said that, you do end up with the kind of bizarre situation where if you say like Nexian verse, it means like, are you talking Shakespeare or Chaucer? Can you imagine kind of Malvolio quoting Chaucer?
I can, and I think my head just exploded.
There's a challenge for Pappy.
Oh, wow. I just see the whole quoting thing going. But yes, it is
Yes.
Friday. And we've had a very, very odd week from Carbine this week. There was no WildStar Wednesday.
Uh-huh.
What? See, now this is where I basically go, Gazzy, there's no WildStar Wednesday. I'm feeling bereft.
Bereft.
Yes, bereft. It's a good choice of a word, right? I'm missing something. Mourning in loss.
Are you desolate? Are you inconsolable?
I am desolate and I am inconsolable.
Do you feel lost and alone without your WildStar Wednesday?
I do. You know, for so long I've used WildStar Wednesday as a way to guide me through my week, and this hump day, nothing happened.
No.
So-
Zilchamundo.
Don't bring Zaxmundo into this.
Zilchamundo.
Well, I was going to say, don't
As
bring the
in
Chua
zero.
Overlord into this.
That's Mundo Zax, not Zax Mundo.
Yeah, but it depends, you know. He could say Mundo Zax, or Zax Mundo, 007. Yeah. Yes, there has been a Tumblr, Etten, as he points out, but I'm just saying, in general, there's been no very specific huge drop release of all of the things.
No, there have been no massive newsworthy nuggets descending from the Carbonites this week. It has been a horticultural collection of hints instead.
Horticultural collection of hints.
Yeah, I was trying to think of something to go in front of hints that would be a collective noun, but failed miserably.
Well, you're definitely not going to be able to get much help from me. My brain feels like it's not even a part of my body since you brought up Chaucer and, you know, all that other stuff. So I don't even know. But yes, so what we do know is that there have been little hints, little drops, all kinds of random weird things. What I will state is it's still depressing. I just want more information. Give me more information, like lots more.
Well, according to the very own Mark Hughes, the UK and European community manager, it will all be over soon.
Now, see, that's such a tease.
Yes, but in terms of teases, a big tease would be soon TM and nothing else. But he's also given us a few hints as to what else is going to be coming on the pipeline. And to be fair, Scooter has done his fair share of hints as well. So we've seen a couple of things. The first thing is that Anlath Mark Humes has been on Reddit quite
avidly,
quite a lot recently. Yeah,
very active and very
yeah.
Wow.
Exactly. So he said a couple of things. He said, first of all, it's soon going to become an awful lot easier for people to get into the WildStar beta. So if you haven't been able to get hold of a weekend key, and you have my commiserations there, or you've not been lucky enough to win one of the full beta keys on places like ourselves, for example, or Real Blank Spaces streams, or anything like that, then you might have a bit more luck, because in the coming weeks, apparently, things are going to change and it's going to become a lot easier for you. So that's the first thing. But the second thing What are you giggling about?
I was just waiting for you to take that entire thing, and it's true. I feel bad for people who haven't
Hmm,
had a chance to get into beta yet. But
hmm.
I was just waiting for you to go. Don't worry, everyone, because it'll all be over soon. Trademarked on Liv, and it's just like I was just waiting for you to go there, but you didn't, and unfortunately, I went there with my brain. You know how I said my brain's not quite connected, so I just had to snicker to myself because I'm like, well, soon, trademark.
Right. I think that's going to be the quote of the day, which I'm going to need to put on Twitter later. Pseudo, I went there with my brain.
Yeah, but if you are aware of what Screenager said to me a couple of weeks ago on the campfire, I apparently have two brains like a kaiju. Which, for those of you who
You
have
have
not seen
two brains
Pacific,
like a clay.
apparently I have two brains like a kaiju. So it's a
What
matter
made
of
him? What made him give this impression?
because I said something about having two brains. I just said brains instead of brain. I like added the S to the end of it, and I went, yeah, because obviously I've got like two brains. And he went, like a kaiju? I'm like, yeah.
It could be two brains like a zombie. You have one in your head and one working its way through your digestive tract.
That could work if Dr. Marsh from our Top Draw shows and I didn't run across the time where my brain was cotton candy and we were talking about diabetic zombies.
Okay.
See, it's apparent. I'm losing my mind. What little
Mm-hmm.
minds I have in whatever
Yes.
format they're made. But yes, so
Mhm.
when it comes to the beta things, we have many hints. There was these press
Mhm.
event drop pictures, etc.
Yes.
That is, I think, the big one that's gotten me all a Twitter.
So I'm not sure what the kind of hand gestures are. It's like you're casting a spell. I cast magic missile.
Hadouken.
No. So there was one other thing that cropped up, and yes, you're quite right. There have been pictures appearing of people at a Carbine press event being shown pictures of WildStar and frothing about pictures of WildStar and stuff like that. And we're not there, so we know nothing. So don't
We
ask
know
us about what's going on.
nothing. So
We
nothing.
have I have ideas. In fact, I wrote about my ideas in an article which got published earlier on in the week.
Yes, at
Um,
MMORPG. Very good
yes.
article. If you have not read
So
it, go see it.
we have theories about what's going to happen, but I do not know for certain. So anything could happen in the next half hour. To quotes,
Anything could
what was it? Thunder,
happen.
anything could happen. Anything could happen. So I'm going to ask you, Pseudo, first of all, what do you think is happening at this press event, apart from drunken debauchery and
Well, that's
people
just a
watching
given
wild
at a
stuff?
press event, right? I mean, just press event equals drunken debauchery. I think that they have unveiled the biggest roused hour made out of toffee ever.
Okay,
I'm just
why?
saying. Well, when you have, people at a press event and you've got people sitting at tables and food, and I'm just, curious to see maybe they're eating the masterpiece of this giant toffee roused hour. It would just be
Why
enjoyable.
would you create?
Why would
Why
you
would you
create
create?
one? Why not? Are you telling me you don't
Okay,
have a sweet tooth, Gazi?
no, I don't,
Ah,
because I am on this diet-shaped thing, and I haven't had a sweet tooth in 4 months.
and might I add, you are looking spiffy,
Thank you very much.
and your hair as
I
well.
still thank you all. It's kind of like doing its own thing. I think if I had rimmed glasses, I'd be looking a bit like Harry Potter, but there we go.
Well, then we'd have to give you a little scar. But yes, I,
No,
and
you
in all
wouldn't.
honesty, when you have something big at like press events and stuff like that, I mean, we've got, Res coming up, we've got PAX coming up. We're starting to get into the convention manifold and threat and push. And one of the key things that you and we actually talked about on a Cosmotronic previously was the fact that we thought that they should get their hype train rolling more so than that they had, because they had a really good momentum going after Gamescom, and then it kind of lulled a little. And, you know, we just like, maybe they need to push the hype train. I think a hype train is coming, and I think we're going to be run over, and it'll be because Dastardly Dan tied us down to the tracks, and we're just going to be run over. And I'm going to throw out to you guys, by the way, if you have any questions literally about anything WildStar, put them in the chat. We will tackle them. I do have some questions left over from the previous week that we can also look at as well. But, I think we're about to get hit by a huge hype train, and I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know whether they're going to turn around and go, well, here's the thing. As everyone knows, we've been busy testing. Oh, God. My brain, honestly, is not connected to my body today. You wrote about it in your article. It was, they, lifted the cap on their...
On the beta.
Yes, thank you. Oh my gosh.
So to give you a bit of a potted history, to give you a bit of a kind of like WildStar in a nutshell, okay? The first time I played WildStar was over a year ago, okay?
Really?
Yeah. The first time I played WildStar was at a press event in February down in Brighton.
Actually, let me ask you about that real quick. If you've been around for so long with the evolution of the game, I mean, honestly, that's going to shape how you see a game. You've seen a much more richer and fuller development cycle than, say, someone who hasn't gotten into beta or who only gets the WildStar Wednesdays as the teaser drops for themselves, etc. Has the change from where it was to where it is now shown, and this is a tech side of you I'm asking, good design principles, including user testing and user feedback?
Okay, so from what I saw, bearing in mind it was only limited beforehand, I only did the that press event in February and the ARC ship that was a few months later beforehand. Then there was the kind of summer beta. And then there was the close down. I wasn't in summer beta. I only got back in when they brought the press back in December again. So, but from what I saw, the close down and the reasons for it and the explanations and the detail that they went into was absolutely the right thing to do. Closing it down, addressing a lot of the concerns that the players had, and basically pulling it to one side because they were going into a really heavy-duty convention season. They had Gamescom, they had PAX, they had Tokyo Game Show, I think. They had the Paris Games Week as well. So they had all those things, and they wanted to be kind of like get the game ready so that in the winter they could fire it back up again and get started. I think that was entirely the right thing to do. I think that making that bold decision where they wanted to say, okay, we're going to take the game, bring it offline, redevelop it, and then bring it back up again, entirely the right decision. That shows a commitment to game quality over getting it out the door. So that was the first thing that really kind of made me kind of take notice of it. As we have gone through winter beta, though, there have been a few bits and pieces here and there. It's like, when you kind of get a sketch outline, or the biggest example is when you watch someone live streaming doing a picture. So they start with drawing the blue lines, and then they do the outlines, and then they start coloring it and shading it and stuff like that. And it's been really enlightening to see WildStar go through that entire process from how it started out, where we had some basic combat principles and Derridune, and that was all that was available back in that time. Then going to ARC ship and playing through, seeing more of Derridune and a bit more of the development, another iteration of the combat cycle and the first dungeon, Storm Talons there. And then going back in that winter beta, and you see things like now the billboards speak to you in an Australian accent when you go up, and the bounty boards, the transmats places have a sarcastic to you. The graveyards, I want to kill the graveyards now. I can see myself getting really pissed off with the graveyards.
Wait a second. Are you,
after.
Gazimoff, the great and utter Chua troll, actually being trolled by graveyards inside
I'm not
WildStar?
being trolled by graveyards. It's just they are sarcastic, and I can't wait to find out a suitable experiment to carry out on them. But there we go. Um, it was so yeah, going through WildStar, seeing all the changes that they have made. They've made them for the right decisions, or for the right reasons rather, and it's been fascinating to watch it. But everything has led up to this point. Everything has kind of got
Well,
to this
see,
thing. And now we've seen.
I this is the thing. I mean, we're getting a lot of drops and hints about like who knows what's coming. Yet we still haven't had a very big war plot reveal, you know, or a hardcore PvP reveal. And I'm wondering,
Mhm.
maybe, just maybe, war plots are going to be thrown onto the table because, you know, at the end of that dev speak, you have the little chew. So you want to know about war plots? And that was my Chewa impression. Save it. It's never happening again.
I
Um,
do have an animated GIF of that.
I'm not surprised. By the way, thank you so very much for that awesome Lop Shiny Dance animated gift that you
That's
made. Cause that like totally made my night last night. It was just seriously awesome. But yes, I mean, we haven't had some of the larger game structures and systems really
Mhm.
revealed. So my fingers are like, maybe the people in the PvP world are gonna get a chance to really see war plots in action. You know,
Yeah.
maybe we're going to see more about PvP or something like that. That's kind of what I'm wondering because I feel kind of bad for the role players, but not quite as much as I feel bad for the PvPers.
Yes.
Because anyone who plays the game can watch someone playing through, you know, levels 1 through 29. And I want to make a kind of point here, by the way.
Mhm.
I remember someone saying, you know, I am not a big fan of WildStar right now because it just doesn't seem funny. Now, this goes back to your discussion about the iterative process that was gone through the development of everything. I think that if you wait until all the little bells, whistles, Australian accents, go get 'em,
Mhm.
tiger, kind of things are all put in, I think people will see the humor that they thought was missing. Because I've actually had some people comment, you know, it just looks like one repetitive grind and there's nothing really humorous about it. Honestly, I have never had so much fun in a game since like vanilla WoW. I
Mhm.
haven't. And it's because these new little things are being added every time they do a patch iteration and every time they
Yeah.
bring things out and it's just little things you don't expect and
Mhm.
maybe some people will get really sick of that graveyard going, yeah, if you should stay dead. That would be better for everyone
Well,
involved.
I think there's two things. First of all, Meddling Mage says, "What do you mean with the graveyards? What's wrong with them?" Well, give you an example. When you die and you res at the Hollow Crypt, which is the term for the graveyard, it says things like, "Dead again? You must be tired. Dead tired." Ha 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 ha. Or what was it? Maybe you're trying to get your death just right. Seriously, any one of them would do, and stuff like that. And you think, freaking graveyard, I'm going to kill you and killing.
Now, see, I
And the thing is,
appreciate that.
and the thing is, the transmats. So these are kind of like your Hearthstones in WoW. The transmat terminals are the same kind of thing. It's like of all the points in all the galaxy, you had to step up and bind to mine. And it's
Well, don't forget the taxis.
oh
The
yeah, the
taxis
New York.
have some
Yeah.
of the greatest bad jokes ever. You know, it's just there is when if you look back
And
over the play experiences when they released the press NDA and people started playing like 1 through 15 and stuff, if you look at the gameplay that people had starting out there, and then you look at the gameplay currently, you will see that a whole bunch of new stuff has been added to just make those,
yeah,
I would call them decorations on what is, in my opinion, almost. There are still some things that need work in WildStar. I'm not going to try to beat around the bush
yeah.
and be fangirl because the truth is there are some things that need some serious love and attention,
Hmm.
period. But there's a lot of little decorations that are being put on, and those little decorations take the game just that one step up, and it
Yeah.
removes the quote unquote hardcore seriousness, and it adds that sort of humor and that sort of direction. I mean, I think you and I both kind of agree that, when it comes to the blurbo text, when it
Mhm.
comes to questing, it's still kind of a bit but
Well, I think
it's a
there's
sacrifice I'm
two.
willing to make for all the stuff that we can get.
I think there's two issues. I think that first of all, if you're in beta, you are determined to try and gorge on as much content as possible, which means that you chew through it at a rapid pace rather than trying to step back and enjoy it. Whereas if you're trying to review content or write about content, which is what you and I tend to do, and analyze it and weigh up its pros and cons, you tend to level at a slower pace, but you tend to absorb more of it and appreciate more of it, which
Yeah.
is why people have different experiences. If you're just going, right, go up to this guy, he's got an exclamation mark over his head, yes, click, done, right, kill 10 of these, bah, 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 right, back again, you miss out on all the humor. Whereas if you kind of
Yeah.
appreciate the spaces and enjoy it, and I think that people's kind of perception of it now versus how they will perceive the game at launch, unless they're trying to be one of these race to 50 caps and race to 50 guys who then wants to go and do raiding or war plotting or stuff like that.
Hmm.
The game begins at 50, then fair enough. But I think that the stuff that's in there at the moment does have a lot of depth to it,
Well,
if you know where to look.
Well, see,
And there's also,
I don't even think you need to know where to look. I'm going to refer you to the stream that I did a couple weeks ago. I did a WildStar stream on this particular channel, and we were just running around. I was trying to make certain answers, as many questions as possible, because people had a lot of different questions, etc. And one of the things was the area, and this is Exile side, where you have to go get a squirg and bring it back for testing. And I went to get the squirg. The squirg sat on my head and disoriented me, and I was spamming my F key trying to make certain I could get it off. Didn't understand what I was doing quest text wise at all, because I thought I had to take it off and then carry it over. No. In this particular case, the way that quest worked was you put the squirg jumps on you, and you're basically trying to regain control of your mind. And when you
okay.
don't, it disorients you and you're like all weirded all up. It's just one of those crazy quests. But I didn't know that. And I thought it was something wrong. And I'm like, I can't seem to figure this out. And then the squirg disappeared because I guess there was a timer to it or something. And I just said, screw it. And I decided to shoot some of the squirgs that were sitting in front of me. I shot this little squirgs that were sitting in front of me. Boom, challenge started. So I was trying to figure something out, which I thought was hysterical to begin with, the fact that I've got a squirg trying to eat my head. And then I got frustrated with it, so I shot the squirgs, which started an entirely different part of the gameplay, a challenge which I could literally take my frustration out on the squirgs and the big Berthas that happened to be in that area. And I was like, roar! And I took care of it, finally figured out how to do the quest, and then I move on to another area, and I almost trip over a tiny little squirg who talks to me because he wants me to be his friend, because he wants me to help him eat people's brains. So I went from, this is cute, to how frustrating, to, oh yeah, die, to, sure, let's be friends. In like a span of 20 minutes. So I
So
don't
do
think
you
you
have
necessarily have to look for the content to do. I think it just kind of happens if you just play the game. It seems like the developers kind of went, yeah, this is going to piss somebody off. They're going to shoot these things. Let's make it a challenge.
Yeah, I think you're right. I can see how beta testing can give people that kind of blinkered tunnel vision where they just want to get through things as quickly as possible, particularly if you are doing a weekend testing.
Yeah, you want to try to see as
because
much as you can.
yeah, and I can really appreciate that. But soon, so Anlath
Yeah.
says, so if it doesn't happen soon, don't blame me, blame Anlath, because it's his fault.
Onlith, we love you, but it's your fault.
Yeah, he's probably, if he does watch this, he's like at Gazimoff. Not my fault.
I'll make it a quick bite. I'll make certain he knows it's his fault because you said so. Gazimov blames Onlith.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So, in terms of what I think is going to happen, this is my gut feel. Yes, we need to have announcements for PvP and raiding, but I'll be brutally honest with you. If you want to show something like that off, the best way to do it is to get PvP guilds and raiding guilds and run them through the content and kind of exhibit it rather than anything else. So I hope that what they're planning to do
Really?
is a couple of live streams where they have someone like a PvP guild showing, or a couple of PvP guilds facing off against each other in a war plot, and a raiding guild rampaging through one of the raids, because that would be a really cool way of showing it off, but demonstrating to other players you could be one of those guys sitting there. It allows that kind of
Yeah.
extracted personification, if that makes any sense. That's a really long-term view. I think that would be really cool.
Extracted
And
personification.
I think it would be a better way for them to do it than to have 20 Carbonites saying, yeah, I got a DPS, I got a tag.
Well, first off, remind me the next time I see you to bring you a bottle of scotch to cover extracted personification's creation of awesomeness, because that has probably got to be a $20 million double word for you. And I think you deserve a glass of scotch for it. I
Okay.
think you might be right. When it comes to seeing anything, that is, I think, one of the biggest like things that's discussed. I mean, rating is huge. It's a fact. If it was just your typical rating that you see in other games, it'd be like whatever. But this is return to the 40, return to the 20, return to tiering, return to epic quests to get attuned, return to XYZ PDQ. I mean, I don't know why I keep saying XYZ PDQ. That's just. It doesn't even mean anything except examine your zipper pretty darn quickly. But anyway, when it comes to the actual mechanics of something that is so big like the war plots and the raids, I kind of still would prefer to have something, even if it's just a tiny little drop, in particular for PvPers. I mean, I guess in a way they kind of feed the PvPers through things like WildStar Temple, and you have the ability to see some people playing what they're playing. But yeah.
Yeah. So yes, you're right. If you're playing things some of that WildStar Temple or Halls of the Bloodsworn, it's quite easy to just queue up, dive in there, crank up the live stream, and go, "Hey, I'm doing this PvP battleground." For things like raids and war plots, you want to be able to show the organization, the strategy, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And those exhibition matches are always really good fun to watch, because it gives you an insight not so much as to how the thing's designed, but to how the thing is played. And I think as players, we get a lot more out of watching how the thing is played than and the response to the design than the design itself, if that makes sense, as kind of players who play that content.
Right.
I think in terms of geeks who are geeky about MMOs, yes, we want to know about the design. But in terms of players who play them, I think we want to see, okay, yeah, that's how he's playing it. Cool.
I guess it's sort of by proxy, more so than anything else. Zedman asks, do you think that Carbine's marketing tactic is good or bad?
Marketing tactic? No, that's unfair. I think...
Wait. So, how is that unfair?
Okay, so I think that there are some fantastic people at Carbine, and Mike Schelling, who is the PR guy, is one of them. I think that they are a very, very shrewd and very interactive development company, and they're very open. I think they are working like anything at the moment, very, very, very hard to try and get the game out, which is why we're not hearing a lot of interaction with the developers at the moment. But they haven't gone for kind of heavyweight PR marketing kind of campaign off the back of it. A lot of the marketing that they're having is word of mouth and showing the game off to press, and the press saying, yeah, we really, really dig this game. We enjoy the combat. We like the way it's set up and stuff like that. And the press are just bouncing off it and saying, yeah, we're enjoying it, which is kind of an interesting way of doing it. But it means you don't get the kind of even things like the videos that they make, they're made internally using the game engine
Yeah.
by people like Chris Hannell and the cinematics team. So it's not like,
Don't forget disclaimer guy. Never ever forget disclaimer guy.
that is disclaimer guy.
It was me just making a commentary more so than like trying to chastise you. I would never attempt to troll the troll. Go ahead.
I thought you would. Okay, so I think that with all of those, you kind of got to bear in mind that they are still a small studio, 200 people, and they're not really going heavy for the kind of marketing with lots of fully animated blur, fully rendered, realistic kind of videos or anything like that. They know what their game is about, and they're relying on the quality of the game and the sheer joy of playing it to sell it much more than some kind of video that's been beautifully rendered with some kind of gravity voice and fully orchestrated score over the top.
I think, see, I kind of see the marketing choices they're making. One of the things that we kind of did sort of shake our finger at Carbine at and go naughty, naughty, naughty was the fact that they didn't try to build a hype train after Gamescom of last year. Now, we know why, and it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. I mean, I want to stress that when it comes to doing marketing, anybody is going to, or most people are going to have an opinion on how marketing handles. Some people are going to be okay with one type of marketing. Some people are not going to be okay with another. For example, take a look at the big blow up about the beta keys. We have Carbine saying, let's give beta keys. The first people they give beta keys to give away to are the fan sites, not news organizations, the fan sites.
Yeah.
Then they went to the news organizations, and then they're looking at other things. But there are some people who are sitting there going, oh yeah, this is great. And other people are like, well, I just never got a chance because there was no way for me to get involved in it. And there are people who are going to pick at any marketing choice made. Do I think what they are doing currently is good? I think they're doing the best that they can with the limited resources that they can. And that is a key point for me. I mean, I don't expect to see William Shatner talking about how he plays an Orin. I don't expect to see some big name, if you are a believer. But, I don't expect to see Justin Bieber talking about playing a Chua. And maybe that's the best way to handle it. But,
if anything, Justin Bieber plays a squirg. And why does he play a squirg? Because we can all kill him again and again and again and again and again.
I find it interesting that you've given Bieber this kind of zombie mythos that he has the ability to res again and again and again. But, in my opinion, one second, in my opinion, the marketing and where they're at right now, I think we're getting closer, like I said, to a huge hype train that when it starts going, I don't think is going to stop until the game is released. I mean, probably past that, because true marketing doesn't stop the moment you open up the servers and say go, because you have to cover all of the intermittent things, including new people going, why is this not working? There's a lot of things you have to plan for. So I think what's coming is the hype train that we kind of all expected to see after Gamescom, but we also all speculated that we'd have the game by Christmas. So, the fact that they didn't do the hype train then is probably smart, because people would be going, well, where is this? And, they specifically said at Gamescom, they brought everything down in closed beta because they needed to re-itemize everything. And that, shows that they're doing a real honest try to develop, well. So I think currently things are okay. Do I agree with the way beta keys were handled? I think they were doing a really nice thing. They didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
They didn't have to do that. So
as a professional who's seen a lot of beta key giveaways.
You're a professional?
Well, I do put things to websites for money. Is money wrong?
Oh, of course, money is very wrong. Naughty, Gazzy, naughty. How dare you try to feed yourself?
I would say that's the definition of professional. I do something and someone pays me to do it. Besides, I can't exactly call myself a pro gamer, can I?
I don't know. You at least understand that when you look at the different classes in WildStar, the weapon will tell you what class it is, whereas
Yeah,
Mizpa didn't quite capture that in one of our previous Cosmotronics. But
no.
yes.
So, in my opinion, the way that the game was run, the way that the beta was run, was exactly the right way to do it. They gave beta keys out to the fan sites first, then they spread out beta key giveaways to. Then they did the Godden key giveaway, and then they did the fan site giveaways, and then most recently they've done a giveaway with Alienware for this weekend. So I don't think there are any keys left for this weekend's beta.
I
But
don't believe so. I think basically Alienware kind of destroyed or got destroyed by the Carbon following. And yes,
yes,
Surrendry Mispa is an entity unto his own.
yes. So the way that they did those, and by the way, the fan site key giveaways weren't just for a weekend. They were
No.
for full fat beta.
Yeah,
They weren't like the.
that's the thing.
Well,
The fan sites, in my opinion, were blessed.
yeah. So I think that the way they did it was absolutely fantastic. The only people that I feel sorry for at the moment are the people who signed up back in August 2011 when WildStar was announced. And they said, sign up here for beta. And they did. And never heard anything again since. And I feel sorry for them because they've probably been watching the game, following the game, feasting on every piece of news that comes out from Carbine and from the various news websites and so on about WildStar. And they haven't had a chance to try it. And I think that for those people, yes, I feel for you guys. I've been there myself. I know what it's like. And I think Anlath said the same thing pretty much. But soon it's going to become an awful lot easier. So what does that mean? I reckon that in the next couple of weeks, we will find out about three things. Release date, pre-order, and collector's edition. And open beta. So pre-order and collector's edition, same thing.
Well, if you get the release date, you know that the open beta is 1 month pre, release date. They've stated this, so obviously you'll know about that.
Yeah.
I hope so. But like I said, I really, really, really want to give a bit of love to the PvPers. I'd love to give some even more love to the lore and the RPers as well. But, it's so difficult when you want to start a full-on in-your-face hype train. Most of the time, people aren't going to want to know about why Mondo Zax is Mondo Zax. They're more interested in, so I play this how do I get my hands on it? But yeah.
So I think that that's my kind of gut feel for it, and that's based on the hints that Anlath has been dropping, saying, it'll soon become a huge amount easier, and Scooter saying, we're going to do some big news. Well, what's the biggest news that you could want to know about WildStar? Yes, it'll be cool to know about. It'll be cool to know about raids. It'll be interesting to know about war plots. Don't get me wrong, I do want to see both of those. But the biggest piece of news is when the game is coming out. So that's, if you're going to pull a bunch of press into the room and say, yeah, this is our game, this is how it works at the moment, this is how cool it is, and this is when it's coming out. That's my gut feel.
Well,
but I don't know.
I keep my fingers crossed. I mean, like I said, I guess it would be kind of weird, or maybe what ended up happening is I pulled all these people into the press event and made them do a raid. Oh, come on. Think about it.
Okay, I'm going to say to you, pull a bunch of press into a room and ask them to do a raid. So imagine 20 people like Mizpa who have probably only played the game for a few hours, if that, and ask them to heavily coordinate and do a raid.
Sure.
Yeah, no.
Why not? I think it would be brilliant.
I think it would be brilliant right up until the first pull. And then I think it would end in tears, bearing in mind that they want to make these things for the hardest of hardcore players, their raiding careers would be brief and inglorious.
The thing is, and I think this is really worth bringing up, someone who, and I'm going to go get it because I had it in my brain and I was like, wow, that is really good. But, we're speaking about the raids. We're speaking about war plots, which tends to be something that when you go to do it, you specialize in it. They are specialized parts of endgame that people can play. And yet there has been this amazing post, and it is on Reddit, and I have it here. And it is from, see if I can read the name, CK Reps 564, who wrote a post called The 65%, and I'm going to throw that into the channel because it's important. And he says, you see all of us people who are hardcore into raids or hardcore into PvP or hardcore into what have you, you see us all discussing how awesome that's going to be, but what about the 65% of players that are casual, that are relaxed, that have a different interest, are not trying to be that end hardcore, raider, what have you? And he pulled together this awesome post to say, you're also included. You are also thought about, and here is where. You've got things like he said about housing, you've got crafting. There is, and this is the thing, we've heard mention whispered of an end game for solo players.
So in terms of end game for solo players, I would say that the regularly delivered content, and when I spoke to Mike Donatelli, and I will be holding him to this, when I've spoken to him in the past, he's been talking about having regular releases of content. And the reason he's been talking about these regular content releases is because, and I said to him, what makes you confident that these content updates are going to be meaningful, deep, have actually something to them, rather than being a couple of new costumes and a bunch of cosmetic items and maybe
are you sort of looking at it
or an emote?
Did you sort of present it from the method about the way that Guild Wars 2 does the living story?
Well, I wasn't so much riffing off the living story, because way back then, and bearing in mind this was February last year, Guild Wars 2 hadn't really got its living story engine into gear. It was trying to do something, but that didn't really come about until April, May time, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. But so at the time, it was kind of like, well, what are you planning to do? And they said, oh, we're looking at doing rapid cadence. And I said, well, how do you make that meaningful? And he said, well, Jeremy Gaffney wouldn't let me make it not meaningful, basically. So
yeah,
that was the one thing there. Now, if that's the case, then it's going to mean that every 3 to 4 weeks you can expect a new dose of story, a new dose of content, a new dose of plotline to continue on there. I'm hoping that we'll also see regular updates in terms of new dungeons and new
adventures, ship hands,
new adventures.
Bring them on.
Yeah, exactly. But the other thing is, don't forget, the entire globe is covered in plugs and sockets. The entire planet of Nexus has plugs and sockets dotted around it, just like your housing plots. Which means that, say one day they release a content patch, Mike Donatelli can lift out a big mountain in White Vale and replace it with a meteor crater and have an event running off that. He doesn't even need to wait for a content patch to do it, because the capability is already in the game.
Now, that's got my toes curling just a little bit. I mean, this to me, if I look at it from a development and a design point of view, this to me is object-oriented programming at its finest, and manifested in the actual employment and deployment of the stuff. I mean, one of the key things of object-oriented programming is reusability, and what they have created with the plug-in socket system is a serious amount of reusability without having to completely redesign everything, which I think is a really good choice. It sets the foundation for, like you said, you could have quick cadence things. I mean, who knows? Maybe, well, before I go into that, let me ask you a question. If we are looking and we're just speculating on this because we don't know, but if we are looking at a 3 to 4 week cadence, do you think that should come in immediately after launch, or do you think there should be a little bit of a
Yes.
lull to let people
No.
actually build?
Nope. I think as soon as the game launches, they should go bump, bump, bump. In fact, if I was going to go really kind of balls to the wall kind of thing, I'd say launch 2 weeks, first patch, first content delivery, and then 4 weeks, and then 4 weeks, and then 4 weeks. The reason for that is that you will surprise everyone to say, yeah, we've play tested the crap out of this game, we've done a load of bug fixes, we're confident it's polished as hell. So yeah, launch maybe a couple of bug fixes, but launch 2 weeks, bam, and everyone will go, WTF? This is not normal.
Well,
Why have we got new content?
I think whatever choice they decide to make, and I will include that particular thing in a quick bite as advice for Carbine from the Gazi. Go balls to the wall with release. Never mind.
I should work in marketing, shouldn't I? I shouldn't be an engineer.
I don't know. You're a Chua, honey. Putting a Chua into marketing is kind of like preparing for the apocalypse. It just seems very weird to me. Chua shouldn't be in marketing. They just shouldn't. But yes, the actual however they plan on doing it, I really don't mind. But whatever way they plan on doing it, I hope that they have kept in mind the impact having that kind of progressive content can have on getting new players into a game in future. Because, you know, one of the things that has occurred with Guild Wars 2 for me is, you know, they've come to this head of what's going on in Lion's Arch with Scarlet. And, you know, there's this huge thing going on there. I've missed all of it because I've been so busy working. And I find myself going, oh, I'm going to log in and not know anything. There's no way for me to catch up. That was one of the things that, WoW kind of did okay because of the way that they handled it. You know, if you wanted to learn about something, there was an entire area or a zone dedicated to that kind of thing. You could actually learn about it. And as I've said to people before, I am a role player. I am a lore hound. I am playing a scientist as a path for a reason. I just hope that it doesn't get to the point where if I need to take care of something, like go to do some kind of press event and I have to work for like an entire 2 weeks and I can't put in the time that I normally would into a game, I hope I don't feel completely and utterly like out of it when I come back. I tend to find the updates things gotta be done just right, or you do ostracize potential new players or even people who have to take a break.
I think there's two things. I think, how do you judge?
You know, I also want to point out to you, by the way, Gazi, there's usually always two things with you, and I love that about you. There's two things, Gazi. Two things. Hashtag two things, Gazi. But yes, go ahead.
So the first issue is, how do you gauge what's too fast, what's too slow?
Yes.
It's difficult to say, yeah? The second thing is, if you compare, say, an MMO to something like WildStar to something like Eve, you don't get any second chances. There's no catch-up. It's a sandbox. You play the game, and if you miss out on something, you miss out on something. If you weren't there for when I think it was Pandemic Legion didn't pay their sovereignty bills, and the Goonswarm went flooding in to try and capture one of their things, then yeah, you miss out. Oh dear, what a pity. Never mind, you weren't online. Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for the kind of like you've got to be in it to win it kind of attitude. However, I see that as also being a bonus to the lore masters and the chroniclers and the storytellers who are recording all that kind of information and then sharing it with other people to say, this is what happened and this is why. And that's something that's a big deal in Eve. And I'm hoping it's going to be a reasonable deal in WildStar, because you're going to get people who want to say, okay, well, this is what happened and this is what we did and stuff like that to then share with other people. And I think that's a cool way of looking at it. But I think if you try and slow it up to be as slow as the slowest person, you end up getting 3-month patch cycles, and that's
now. See, that's the thing. I think 2 weeks is almost too fast for me as a player. There's other people out there who are perfectly fine with 2 weeks. I think 1 month is just on the edge. I kind of personally appreciate a 6 week. That's just me personal, because what it does is it alternates it, because there are going to be certain months where I can put more time in at the front of the month than I can at the end of the month versus the middle of the month. And having a 6 week allows it to cycle through the different things. So I don't know. I tend to have a 6 week love.
The problem with that is then you end up with months where nothing happens, and it's like, well, okay, this is a month with no content patch. Why should I pay my sub for this month? Because there's nothing happening.
Well, see, now you're starting to get into, why do people play a game to begin with? And if for some people they may think, well, there's nothing happening because, you know, it's all about PvP this particular cycle, or it's all about PvE. This is why what occurred recently in Guild Wars 2 was so mind-boggling. They brought into World v World lore, and the living story wove itself into World v World. And that the last time they did that, they had some sketchy issues with it. But this time they did it well, but it took them a long time to get there. But then it was, this is about the World v World, this is about the PvP, this is about the PvE, and it was separated. So, you know.
As a quick example of how serious the in-game stories can be, I actually have something here. And Mizpa knows about this. Oh, not Mizpa, Pseudo knows about this.
You called me Mizpa?
Yes, I did call you Mizpa. So this arrived today.
I need to restart my broken heart. But yes, immersion.
Yes, this is a book that documents the last 10 years of that game, EVE Online, including all of the lore, all of the stories that happened. Yeah, I would love to see something similar created for WildStar. Not necessarily a printed book, but, you know, something which covers the major events, the things that happened, the in-game stories. Not things like, not what WoW does, not what Blizzard does, where they say, okay, we're going to have, for example, the Shattering, and have that as a separate story which doesn't happen in game. Because frankly, that means your game misses out on stuff, and people who play your game and pay every month for it miss out on all of this lore because Kirsty Golden put it in a book.
No offense, Kirsty Golden.
No offense. I mean, she's a great writer. She's better than Richard A. Knack. But what books like this should be, what they should be about, is people who played the game, had stories, wrote it down, and stuff like that. And I think it should be much, much more about that, and sharing and trading stories. Because the stories that we have about playing these games are what brings us together, really, at the end of the day. When you go and chat to other people about playing something like this, you don't say, you say things like, oh, we did this raid and it was really good fun. Or, oh, did you do that quest? Yeah, I did that quest, and stuff like that. And you trade how you experienced the game just as much as someone else, and you bounce off that, and that brings people together. And I think that books about the game, books about WildStar, should be about those stories and those experiences and the things that happened, rather than things which happened outside of the game. So you end up having to buy books to fill in the blanks. And I think it should be an archive of what happened, so that when people come along later and miss out on the backstory, they can dive in and they can catch up and they can find all about it. I don't mind if it's something like they've done comics. I don't mind if it's like little comic catch-up things, or Tales from the Fringe, or something like that, to say this is the backstory of the last 6 months of game time that you've missed. Or if it's something like a player-driven initiative where they document what happened. Or if it's a proper, they hire someone to write the book and then they either put it up as an ebook or they publish it or something like that. I think that that's much more powerful. And I think that it also doesn't cheapen the in-game lore and say, well, the in-game lore is second rate because it's in-game and you experience it. And if you want to get the premium quality stuff that we've actually paid proper writers to do, then there you go. And I think that's kind of crap.
Are you trying to imply that Pappy is not a proper writer?
No, I think that Pappy deserves a lot more credit than he gets.
Now that I can agree with entirely. Now, see, I have to state, because we are coming to the close of our show, so if you guys have any questions you want us to answer, now's the time to throw them out so that we can answer your questions, because honestly, this is a good chance to pick the brains of Gazi. So, but basically, when it comes to the lore and how it's presented, I kind of appreciate the concept that what you're saying with. I mean, Eve is a little different because what you've got are corporations who are literally shaping the lore every single day. I mean, every time someone logs in or doesn't log in, every time someone pays their bill or doesn't pay their bill, lore is created in this sandbox universe. So it's designed for things like, you know, these giant books that are what happened 6 years ago when, you know, someone actually infiltrated another corporation and then took over, and there was that corporate espionage thing that cost like millions. I mean, that itself is really, really awesome, but that's sandboxing. I mean, the people who play the game create the lore. When it comes to things like WildStar, I'd like to see the lore in-game, but I also wanted to, if they're going to do books, I want them to be careful, because finding those Elden cubes is fantastic. I don't necessarily want spoilers. And it's going to be, I think, a little difficult to, you know, go. I mean, it's not so much because, you know, you could, like you said, you remove the mountain, insert crater plug, you get world event of, you know, everyone got hit by a crater. You have to deal with the after effects of it. You know, dinosaurs rise up and people are eaten by mutated Chua. You know, however you want to plan out that particular event, you can do so, and you can actually document it. If there's something that is, I would say, impacts everybody, because not everyone is going to see that. I mean, this is one of the things I loved about AQ when they did that whole grand opening thing. It was a server effort to get the gates of AQ open. It was a server effort to take care of those giant walking Anubis statues that were all over the place. It took the community to do something about it. So I hope they do that. And you can write books about that and just have it, you know, documented in a lore thing. But I would want to make certain that spoilers weren't necessarily there. But I guess in a way, if you're going to write a book about the lore of a world, spoilers are going to be self-evident. Or maybe there's a way to do it and there's a way not to do it.
I think, if I'm brutally honest with you, it's got to be an evolving thing to a large extent. I mean, you'd want to be able to cover the major factions. Like, for example, with Dominion, you'd want to say, okay, these are the major factions. You'd want to write about the Dredge. You'd want to write about the Vigilant Church and stuff like that. Yeah. And those will start off fairly small and then grow and grow and grow. And it might be that you have a bunch of wiki articles, official wiki articles that are maintained and developed. And then you have something big that's done, say, a year down the line.
Right.
But even that might be like a reference ebook or something like that has maybe has a bit more background plots, maybe some stuff they couldn't squeeze into the game, little bits and pieces like that. But I think that we've gone off on a real tangent here. I think that's it's like Dresden Blood said, write the book after the fact, after it's happened. Yeah, you don't write a book to say this is about to happen. You write it after it's happened, so that people who then come along afterwards find out about it.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. It's a matter of finding really good writers, and I think this is the thing. I think you're absolutely right when it comes to the lore of WildStar. When it comes to what is actually going on story-wise, not enough credit is given to the lore team. They seem to be just, it's an accepted part of an MMO. It's an accepted part of IP. You have a story, yay. And there doesn't seem to be, in my opinion, enough appreciation and love. Because what you guys may not realize is there might be a reason why the graveyard talks back to you. There might be a reason why the billboards have the voice that they have. There might be a reason why hoverboards work the way that they do. And there is, if you're going to build an IP, you have, reasons for almost anything. I mean, you have reasons why people sneeze. So I want to make certain that you guys, if anything, give a serious shout out to the lore team, the entire team that is working to make lore awesome. And of course, Team Pappy.
Okay, I'll give you an example. I'm working through White Veil at the moment. White Veil is the level 24 to 32 zone, I believe. Take you up to
roughly
speaking.
I say roughly because I think you leave before you get 32, okay. But yeah.
So I'm currently working through White Veil, and I'm going to be writing about it shortly. But there's one thing that's been working in my mind. The LOP, first of all, have an obsession with shinies, as you can see from the animated GIF, but they have an aversion to the ghosty. They say no ghosty, only shinies when you go up to them and trade with them. So it's like, have they had like pretend shinies or apparitions shinies that have turned out to be no shiny at all? Or what's kind of spooked them down that path?
And this is why I state, seriously, guys, when the game comes out, people may want to rush that end game stuff. And if you so want to, because the game starts at 50 for you, be my guest. But honestly, take your time. Appreciate the content that is there. The amount of stuff that is hidden in the story, in the game, in the zones is phenomenal.
Indeed.
It really is. And I will tell you, I was in an area I had already been in. I've been through it multiple times, and I turned a corner and saw something I'd never seen before. And I didn't even know it was there. And it kind of went, wait, how did that occur? I was all over this area. I was all over it, like repeatedly for like many hours. Handle it. And no, there's still stuff I missed. So take your time. But yes, we did kind of move a little bit off. But I think when it comes to the lore and everything else like that, and understanding how IP works and understanding what could or could not be coming, there you go. And there was a post, I don't know if you happened to see it. It was from Mike Donatelli. And I believe that it was, from today, a little earlier. And it was a war plot match from the press event. And I will link that because it was linked for us. But there you go. So you can actually see that lovely little thing. But yes, that's a crazy war plot match. So if you can get people together for war plots, you can get them together for raids, can't you?
You can.
Not necessarily successful.
Maybe they're testing the Million Idiot March.
Maybe they are testing the Million Idiot March, and hopefully you guys know what that is. If not, you definitely want to check back on past articles written by Gazi, especially with his talk with... And see, this is the thing. You did that piece. I remember it so vividly well because you also mentioned mounts and mounted combat. And we haven't seen that yet. So you're like... If you're hinting, and this is way back from Gamescom, that mounts may have something more to do than just take you from point A to point B, we haven't seen it yet. Not even in the beta, from the 1 to 15 to the 1 to 29. You've seen nothing about those mounted things other than the fact that if you're on them and you hit water, you got to be careful because you can die.
Yep.
But, yeah. And it was hinted at. Yes, Katamari, for those of you who were unaware, August, wasn't it? Last year. It
was August, just after Gamescom.
Yeah, just after Gamescom, you had a chance to speak with Jeremy Gaffney, and you guys got off on all kinds of random tangents. And there was a hint at mounted combat. Just a hint.
Yes, there was.
And you can find that article. Is that one on ZAM?
Yes, it is. That's before I made the switch from ZAM to MMORPG. But I got to be honest with you, Cyglaive is doing a fantastic job over at ZAM these days. So.
Oh, there you go. But yes, so Gazi had an article over on ZAM, and it did mention mounted combat. And again, stuff we haven't seen. There are so many things. That's just it. There's so many little drops of all these little things that they've discussed and hinted at. And I mean, like we said, the solo endgame. Still haven't really seen anything about that. Granted, we're not at the point where we are even looking at endgame necessarily, although, as you pointed out in your article, the beta has opened up for people to start playing around in, at least on the higher levels. So all kinds of crazy things are occurring. But yeah. Personally, I am really, 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 really looking forward to Cosmotronic next week. And yeah, I'm really looking for Cosmotronic next week. Cosmotronic next week is going to be interesting, I think. I think it's going to be really crazy. I mean, you can't tease us about press stuff, not give us a WildStar Wednesday, and then do nothing the next week. That to me would just be wrong. At that point in time, if you don't give us something next week, Carbine, I've got a problem with you. Don't tease us.
They might do. They might turn around and go, nah, nothing.
That would just break my heart again. Like I said, I suffered this week without my WildStar Wednesday.
You're forgetting one thing. I am inherently evil.
How could I forget that? It's like your OP. What is it? Operandus modem.
Yes, I'm overpowered in evil.
No,
I think we've all established that.
Modus operandi. MO.
OP.
That's your MO.
MO.
Backwards.
No. I think you were right with OP. Gaz, your evil is OP. Yes, I know. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Gazi. You evil thing, you. But yeah. Okay. So basically, we're going to go ahead and say bye-byes to everybody. Thank you guys so much for showing up for the Cosmotronic. Do spread the word for next week. You definitely, just spread the word for next week, because that way we can have a heck of a lot of fun when the whole team is back together. And it's not just one or two or three of us, but it's all the team. Yeah. I'm looking forward to that. But yes, Gazi, my dear, you may be evil. You may have things I don't have. You may tease me constantly with your plushies. Like your meerkat plushie, which I still haven't seen yet.
I haven't got the meerkat plushie yet. I've ordered a Sergey meerkat plushie.
Simples. But yes, so even with all of that, you are still an absolute awesome to have around and to chat with WildStar things. So thank you. And do say hello and goodbye all at one time as we fade to black, as the case may be.
Yes. The only other thing I would say, the only other thing I would mention is, if you've enjoyed the show, tell other people. If you haven't enjoyed the show, tell us.
Yes. You know, that is a really good way to put it. Seriously, if you've enjoyed it, share it. If you haven't enjoyed it, tell us, because we need to know so we can make it better. Yeah. But on that note, the Gazi, everyone bow to the Gazi. Worship the Chuagazi. I see you. And thank you for attending the Cosmotronic. Cosmotronic!
Niet problemski.
Yes. And we'll be back next week on Friday at the same time, hopefully with the entire team together. But I will tell you this. We'll really want to see you there. Bye-byes. Did a little lop dance. Lop shinies.